Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. And today we are looking at lesson number 55 in our blue books, and we're talking about fractions and symbols of inclusion. So here we go. Now remember, when we're using our symbols of inclusion, we're using our order of operations, which a lot of times we call PEMDAS, but that means parentheses come first. Okay, so PEMDAS is parentheses and then exponents and roots. They go together. And then remember PEMDAS. Let's review it. This is parentheses, brackets, and braces, all of our symbols of inclusion. And then E stands for exponents and roots. And then multiplication and division are at the same level. And then lastly, addition and subtraction come in. So we're always following this, no matter whether we're dealing with fractions or decimals. So this time we're talking about fractions, and we're going to come to the parenthesis and do it first. But we have a problem because we have a fourth and a 16th that we're going to add together, which means we need to get common denominators. So what if I just move this plus sign over? And I'm going to multiply the 1/4 by 1 in the form of 4 over 4. Okay, so when I multiply by 1, it doesn't change the value, but it does change the form of the fraction. So now we've got 3/2 times. Now this becomes 4 over 16 plus 7 over 16, which is now easy to add together, minus the 1/8. Okay, and the 4 over 16 plus the 7 over 16 is 11 over 16. Remember, we just put it over the common denominator. And then we multiply that by the 3/2, and then we're going to subtract the 1/8 at the end. Now, since I'm doing this first, I look and say, is there anything that I can do to make that any simpler? And there's not really. Okay, there's nothing that I can cancel here, so I'm just going to go ahead and bring it over here. And 3 times 11 is 33, and 2 times 16 is 32. Okay, and now I'm going to subtract 1 over 8. But 1 over 8 is the same thing as 4 over 32, because I multiplied by 4 and 4, right? So now I'm going to subtract 4 over 32 instead of just 1/8. I'm going to change its form to 4 over 32. So now what is my answer? 33 minus 4 is 29. 29, since they're the same denominator, we just put them over that same denominator, and 29 32ths is the answer. Okay, 29 32nds is the answer, and that is example number 1. I'm going to hold it here for just a second because it's a lot of work to make sure that you understand, and then we'll go do example 2. On example 2, I'm going to work it just a little differently than your book does, but it's equivalent. Your book immediately turns this into an improper fraction. I'm going to do it just a little bit differently. I'm going to eventually turn it into an improper fraction, but I'm going to do it after I subtract the 1/8. And you're going to see that we're going to get the same answer that you get in your book, which is 17 over 16. Okay, so we're going to leave this alone, but we're only going to change our 1/4 to 8ths. So we're going to say that is 3 2/8 because I multiplied by 2 and 2 on the top and the bottom and got 2/8 minus 1/8. So now, doesn't this parenthesis 2/8 take away 1/8 is going to be 1/8. So I'm going to wind up with 3 1/8 in here. And then I'm going to bring down my 1/3 and my plus 1 over 48. Okay, so now I'm going to do the next part, which I am going to need to get this into its improper form now. So 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Okay, so I'm going to have 25/8 here. So this is what we had. And now I'm getting a new board. I ran out of space. So I'm changing the 3 1/8 to 25/8. And you can see I have everything else just the same as it was on the other board. So now let's finish up on this board. So now the 25 and the 3, nothing will cancel. I have to do multiplication before I do addition. So let's go ahead and multiply. 25 times 1 is 25. And 3 times 8 is 24. And then I'm adding 1 over 48. So my 24 is not a 48. So I'm going to multiply to get a common denominator. I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. Okay, so that's going to give me a 50 on the top, 50 over 48 plus 1 over 48 is 51 over 48. Okay, so then I look and say, can I simplify that? And I can, because 51 and 48 are both divisible by 3. Do you remember how we can tell that? 5 plus 1 is 6, and 6 is divisible by 3. 4 plus 8 is 12, and 12 is divisible by 3. So I'm going to get these simplified by dividing by 3 on the top, and I'm going to get 17 over 16 when I divide by 3 and I divide by 3. And that is my final answer, and that's what you get on your book. We only did it a little bit differently than they did in the book, but we got the same answer because they were equivalent. So we started out like this. There's your first board. And then we finished like this. There's your second board. And we have one more example, and then we're going to do some practice problems here. Okay, this one's a little more complicated because we have 2 parentheses inside a really big bracket. Okay, so let's do our parentheses inside out. So we're working inside out, but we're working left to right inside that bracket. So the 2/3 needs to turn into 4/6, right? Because I'm going to add it or subtract it with a 6/6. All right, so we're going to change this 2/3 to a 4/6 by multiplying by 2 and multiplying by 2, minus 1/6. Okay, and that's going to give me here 4 minus 1 is 3/6. Now I can simplify that, but I'm going to wait because I might have to add it over here. Okay, so then this one is needing to change. 1/3 is the same thing as 2/6. Multiply by 2, multiply by 2. I get 2/6 plus 5/6 is 7/6. Okay, and these two add together, and then we got this big bracket, and we've got the 2/5 out here. Okay, so 3 plus 7 is 10/6. So this is going to equal 2/5 times 10/6. Oh, this one's nice because what? We have the 5 and the 10 will cancel with a 2 and a 1. Okay, and then we have the 6. And couldn't I really cancel the 6 with either one of the 2's? So I'm just going to choose to cancel the 6 with the 2 up above it and make that a 1 and that a 3. So I divided both the 6 and the 2 by 2 and got a 1/3. So now when I multiply across, I've got a 2 on the top, and that's it. And then I've got a 3 on the bottom. So my answer is 2/3. And 2/3 is the answer to that one. So look over that one. That's got all your work. The last example. And now we're going to come back and do some practice problems together. Okay, here is your first practice problem on the board. So you want to copy it down. 3/4 bracket, big bracket, and inside the bracket is 4/5 minus 1/2 in a parenthesis plus parenthesis 1/6 plus 1/3 parenthesis, and all of that is in the big bracket. So copy that down and then pause your video. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. Hopefully you did it by yourself, but I want to check your answer for you. So we're going to start inside the parentheses and we're going to do them left to right. So we have a little problem here. We've got two different denominators. So to find the common denominator, we know that 5 and 2 go into 10. So we're going to multiply the 5, the 4/5 by 2 over 2. And then we're going to multiply the 1/2 by 5 over 5. So we're still multiplying by 1, but it's different forms of 1 to get the common denominator of 10. So 5 needs times 2 to get to 10. So we'll multiply times 2, and that's going to be 8/10. And then we're going to subtract. And then the 1/2 we need to multiply by 5 over 5. Which will be 5/10, and 8/10 minus 5/10 is 3/10. Okay, so now let's go up and grab this other one up here. So we're going to put a plus there, and then we've got 1/6, but 3 will go into 6 evenly. So let's just leave the 1/6 alone, and we're going to multiply the 1/3 by 2 over 2, which is 1. And we're going to get 2 over 6, which then would simplify to 1/3. So now 1 over 6 plus 2 over 6 is 3 over 6. So now we have our two parentheses, but now we have to add those two things together. And then we're going to just bring down our 3/4 so we don't forget that we haven't done the whole problem. Okay, so now 10 and 6. What is the smallest number that both 10 and 6 will go into? And that is 30. So we're going to multiply the 3/10 by 3 over 3 to get a 30 on the bottom. And we're going to multiply the 3/6 by 5 over 5 to get a 30 on the bottom. So now we're going to have 9/30 plus 15/30, and we have to remember our 3/4. So now we're going to have 3/4 times, and then when we add this together, we're going to get 24/30. Okay, well, nicely, 24/30 will simplify, but we're going to go ahead and just cancel, and that'll be fine. So the 3, let me get a different color here. The 3 and the 30 will cancel with a 10 and a 1. And the 4 and the 24 will cancel with a 6 and a 1. So 6/10 will still simplify by 2 and 2. So divide the 6 by 2, and we're going to get a 3. And divide the 10 by 2, and we're going to get a 5. So the answer should be 3/5. So here, look at your board, and that is practice number 1. Did you get 3/5? Hopefully you did. Okay, here is our last practice on lesson 55. So I want you to copy it down, and it is 1/4 times the parenthesis 2 and 1/2 minus 1/7 parenthesis plus 1 over 28. Okay, so pause your video. Hopefully you did that. And now we're going to do this one. Now, in your book, they are making this 4 plus 1, 5/2, and then they're turning that into a common denominator. I'm going to leave the 2 alone because the 1/2 is bigger than the 1/7. So then we'll turn it into an improper fraction in a moment. So we're going to bring down our 1/4. we're going to change just our 1/2 into a common denominator. 2 and 7 are going to go into 14. So I'm going to leave the 2, and we're going to make 1/2 into 7/14 minus, and then 1/7 could be 2/14. So notice what I did. I took the 1/2 and I multiplied it by 7/7. Then I multiplied the 1/7 by 2/2. And I've got a common denominator plus the 1/28. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this, and I can go ahead and subtract it right away. And I'm going to get 2 and 5/14. Okay, because 7 minus 2 is 5/14. And then I've got the 1/4 plus the 1/28. So now I'm going to have to go ahead and turn this into an improper fraction. So 2 times 14 is 28, plus 5 is 33. Okay, so this is going to be 33/14 times 1/4. So we're going to have 1/4 times 33/14 plus the 1/28. So I'm going to get a new board because we're out of space. So here was our last line before I turned the 2 and 5/14 into a 33/14. So now I've got it written correctly here with the 33/14. So now we'll put that board down and just work with this one. Okay, so we have the 4 won't cancel the 33, so we have to go ahead and multiply that out. So we're going to have 33 over 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1, and I'm going to get a 56 plus 1/28. But 28 goes into 56 2 times. So I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2 here, and I'm going to get 33/56 plus 2/56. Okay, so because I'm out of room, I'm just going to go ahead and make this a 2/56. And then I have 35/56. And 35/56 will simplify, because doesn't a 7 go into both 35 and 56? So if I take 35 and divide by 7, I'm going to get a 5. And if I take the 56 and divide by 7, I'm going to get an 8. And so your final answer should be 5/8. So I'm going to show you both of those boards because we didn't have much time on the first one. Okay, so here was the first board. So hopefully you got all of that down. And then we switched to the new board and found our final answer of 5/8. So we've done a lot of fraction practice today. Let's make that an 8 again. Okay. Done a lot of fraction practice, and we're done with lesson 55. This is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.